Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes and I'm so happy you're with us today. Oh, my dear friends, our Seek Reality guest this week is Beau Williams, who is someone who really knows how to begin his book with a bang. Wow. Beau was half of a truly beautiful couple, and as his book begins, he tragically discovers that his truly beautiful, young, beloved Melanie has just shot herself in the chest with his shotgun. Oh my God. But fortunately, his book gets a whole lot better from there. Beau was born in Palo Alto, California, where he was a sports athlete in his high school. He competed in football, baseball, basketball, and track all at once. Wow. I have to say wow again. A football injury led him to complete a postgraduate year at Phillips Andover Academy in Massachusetts, which is a very elite school, where he first discovered his passion for acting and playwriting. He went on to attend the University of Colorado, and he played tight end there. He won a Big 12 championship and earned a degree in communication. So you can see this is someone who is very competitive, very athletic, very sort of everything. And he took his first screenwriting course there and he began to write screenplays. Very talented, period. Beau moved to Los Angeles in 2004. He's a writer and event producer with experience in both film and live entertainment. In 2009, he founded Martin Entertainment Group, he calls it MEG, which he has hosted thousands of events across Los Angeles' beach communities. Wow, you could see he's lived a really kind of fun life, too. He wrote, produced, and starred in feature films like Americos, I think it's called
Americans.
Released in 2015, and later he licensed the rights to Best of All, producing Best of All Bali in Indonesia in 2017. His debut memoir is called 1 Year with My Soulmate. And it, as I say, it begins with a bang. We'll be talking about that today. It's the first book in the Sunflower Signals series. That book chronicles the transformative love story between Beau and his late partner, Melanie. It's a journey through intimacy, grief, spiritual awakening, and post-loss reconnection. It's a long book, but it's a beautiful book. I've read parts of it. I didn't have time to read it all, but it's written across 4 countries, Indonesia, the United States, Spain, and Northern Ireland, and it's guided by signs, synchronicities, and a deep commitment on Beau's part to honoring Melanie's life that was cut so short. In October of 2025, which is the year we're now speaking, Beau will be launching a new event in Bali that was inspired by Melanie called the Butterfly Effect, a healing experience that incorporates the same breathwork, movement, writing, and spiritual practices that he used to help himself to recover from her loss. Oh, my dear Beau, what a story. Welcome. It's lovely to have you with us on Seek Reality today.
Roberta, thanks so much for having me, and I really appreciate you holding space and allowing me to share my story with your audience.
Okay, since I began to read your book with no idea about what was about to happen, you've just got to tell me, did you have any idea what was about to happen? I mean, she was moving out, so there was like a little break there. But was she depressed? What was going on?
She was always in her head, and I knew that she was struggling at times, but you never foresee something like this happening. She had mentioned that she was having suicidal thoughts, but simultaneously she's breaking up with me. And it felt a little bit manipulative. And she was 2 years, had worked really hard to break free from an Adderall addiction that kind of was part of her life for 15 years, and was 2 years sober. And in February of 2024, she went back to the Adderall, which almost like opened a door to the toxic energy of her past relationship. And she wanted to go back to see if there was anything there with her ex. And so she was breaking up with me to go see if that relationship was something that she was missing, or what that feeling was. And in the process, she's mentioning that she's having these suicidal thoughts, but it seemed, and that she was really struggling. But I didn't know that she was back on the Adderall. She had hid the Adderall from me,
Oh,
and I
Lord.
didn't find out until later that she was back on it, until after she had passed. And yeah, it was shock. She was coming over to pick up the last of her things. I left a key for her. I'd put all of her stuff on the picnic table, and I checked. I went to work. I was hosting an event at the Victorian in Santa Monica, and I knew she was coming over to pick up her stuff. So I checked my security camera, and I saw that all of her stuff was sitting on the back table, but my phone was had been kind of in and out of service, or not in and out of service, but my battery was on low all day. So I thought maybe my phone just wasn't picking up. The camera was frozen or something. And then I went and charged it, and then I saw a palm frond move, and all her stuff was still sitting on the back gate. And I had seen her come in at about 5:09 p.m. on the camera. And so I left the Victorian. I told the general manager, I said, I'll be back in 30 minutes. And ended up seeing her well, ended up finding, I couldn't find her at first. She was at the foot of my bed. And yeah, it was the most shocking thing that's ever happened to me. And somehow that traumatic experience unlocked something in me that I didn't know existed. And it's been quite the journey since then.
Yes, I mean, to say the least, but that was it was a dramatic way to open the book, but it showed the way that you handled that showed how what a strong person you really were. You took it better than I certainly could have, or than most people could have.
Yeah, there was two paths that I could have taken. I could have fallen back into the nightlife scene and doing the events that I was doing. And I didn't want to do that. I was feeling like I immediately, so Melanie had taught me breath work. And about 10 to 12 days after she had passed, I'm staying in my bedroom for the first night since she had been gone. And there had been some light things that had happened where I could kind of feel her coming through, but I was in such a state of shock and trauma that I didn't know if my mind was playing tricks on me or not. And so after my parents left, I'm lying in bed at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I slip into a breathwork session, pranayama, which is an ancient breathing technique. It's one breath to the belly, a second to the chest, exhale, and it's repetitive for about 30 minutes. And this was a practice that Melanie had taught me. She had used breathwork to recover from her Adderall addiction and to help clear the traumatic energy that she was sexually abused when she was 4 years old, and she discovered this through breath work. By activating her intuition, she was using breath work to clear that energy. So she had taught it to me and was training to be a breathwork therapist. And so I slipped into pranayama. After about 30 minutes, I just I asked her, I said, Mel, are you here? And the moment before the words even finished coming out of my mouth, every energy center, and by energy center, I'm referring to all seven chakras, lit up with a euphoric surge of electricity. And the closest thing that I can describe it to would be like goosebumps, but inside my body and multiplied by 1,000. And I figured out that I could ask her yes or no questions. And so through the course of yes or no questions, I started asking her if there was certain people that she wanted to see. I asked her if it was I said, is it difficult for you to communicate like this? Boom, a huge charge of energy shot through my body. I said, would you like me to find a medium? Another huge charge of energy shot through my body. I started asking, are there different people that you'd like me to see? She said yes to her friend Kia, she said, who was a breathwork friend. She said no to her friend David, who was her breathwork teacher. And Kia ended up leading me to Brandy, who was the first medium. Actually, I say take that back. David led me to Chris, who was the first medium that I worked with. Chris wouldn't do a reading. He won't do a reading for at least 1 year until after someone has passed, because the people who are missing their loved one might not like everything that their loved one on the other side, or might not be ready for everything their loved one on the other side is ready to say. So he wouldn't do a reading, but he said you should get out of town. You should get out of town for at least 22 days. And I said, I've been thinking about going to Bali. He's like, if you could afford to take the time off, go to Bali. Um, and then Kia said that, yes, my friend Brandy said she was feeling like she was going to be, like somebody was going to be coming into her life that she was supposed to connect with, and talk to spirit on the other side for. So Brandy would do a reading, and Mel and her entire family and I did a reading with Brandy, and you go into that. I'd never worked with a medium before, and you start to, even though I felt like I was being led to her and I had all this stuff happening with my chakras, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, is this legit or not? And the moment that she said that, Melanie, it was like something was stuck in her throat chakra was locked up. She didn't have the courage to share her story, which is what I feel like I am doing now for her, to try and help people that are struggling with addiction and abuse energy, and teaching them that, there is a way through that pain.
Yes. Wow. I mean, it feels like very heavy stuff. Has she told you why she ultimately got to the point where she felt that she couldn't go on, or what made her pull that trigger?
There's a bunch of, it's not one particular reason, and I have an understanding from both realms as to what happened, if that makes sense. I understand based on human emotions and human ego why she did what she did. And I also understand, I'm beginning, I think, to understand why it was divinely orchestrated
Yeah.
in the spirit realm. I had a song, so Melanie has found ways, and it initially started through a medium where she's giving me music and communicating through the lyrics and songs. And Brandy, who's one of the mediums that I worked with, said that because of the vibrational frequency of spirit and technology is often the easiest way for spirit to communicate with us. And so Melanie has found a way, and she was always big into music. We went to a bunch of shows. We saw Portugal the Man, we saw Hozier, we saw Ray LaMontagne. She loved her music, and so it's not surprising to me that she would use music to find a way to communicate. But she'll put songs in my head, and there was a song by Ayla Nero, and some of these songs are coming through after breathwork meditation. So I would do her teacher David's 28-minute breathwork meditation, and then afterwards, the music that would come through would tell me a story. And so there's one song called by Ayla Nero, I think it is, and the lyrics were, "This is all you asked for." Like this was some kind of divinely orchestrated um, thing between us that we knew was going to happen. Every single medium that I've worked with said that her book of life was written the day that she would be born and the day that she would leave. Her life as Melanie was written prior to her being born. So
Yes.
if that's the case, then I wanted to hold up my end of the bargain to make sure that her loss wasn't for nothing, and that I carry on the dream that she had, that she was never able to, because she didn't have the courage to tell her story. And I think more than anything else, that's why she retreated. She tried to go back to a time when the Adderall was working for her. And I saw a interesting Instagram quote by Dick Gregory that said, once you put on the magic glasses, you can't take them off. And Melanie was gifted. She could read my mind and did so on multiple occasions.
What was that Dick Gregory quote again?
Once you put on the magic glasses, you can't take them off.
Yeah,
Meaning,
he was a funny guy. He was our when I had young children for about 10 years, we were next door neighbors. And so on some Saturdays, he would just come up to my house and opine. And I don't, you may not ever, a lot of people never knew him personally. Because he was sort of a raging guy at that point, but he was a person on a personal level. He was a philosopher. And once you put on the magic glasses, I suppose that's who he really was. He could never take those glasses off.
so what I mean by that is Melanie was spiritually gifted.
Yeah.
When she got off the Adderall, got off the birth control, found breath work. It's like we were talking a little bit earlier before we started recording, but we all have these gifts. We all
Yeah.
have the ability
Yeah.
to connect to spirit. We all have the ability, our crown chakra is kind of the last chakra that's at the top of our head that gives us the ability to connect to spirit. And a lot of us use alcohol and drugs to numb those abilities. And so when Melanie got off the Adderall and she got off the birth control and she wasn't drinking and she found breath work and she was sober for 2 years, she started having visions. And some of them were heavy for her. And
So she was in a new world then that she couldn't get back out of, is
she
what you're
she
saying.
she was in a new world where she realized things about her past that were troublesome to her,
Yeah.
some things that she was never quite able to heal, and she also was seeing things like the Maui when she was in Maui right before the Maui fires, and she left early because she felt like something terrible was going to happen there. And when the Maui fires actually happened, we were on a date in Carpinteria and over one of our first overnight dates. And she goes, "I told you something bad was going to happen." She knew it.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
same thing she kept saying about LA. We need to get out of LA before the election. We need to get out of LA before the election. And sure enough, the LA fires happened. And I thought it was going to be an earthquake because once she passed, she started showing me some of the things that she was seeing, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And
So she
she
had a deeper awareness of things that was too heavy a burden for her to feel that she could carry.
and she also didn't feel like she could share that with anybody. Melanie was very secretive. I think that had she, I would have been open to to those conversations with her. And I had seen. I mean, one time we were in Las Vegas, and Melanie. It was after Labor Day weekend, and Melanie could see. We're at the Cosmopolitan, and she could see entities crawling up the wall, and
Oh,
it was entities left over from Labor Day weekend. We got in on Monday, and she said we need to get out of here, and I believed her. And I found us at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I found us a hotel in the middle of the desert. I said, okay, we're in Vegas. She's like, we need to go rent a car and drive back to LA. We need to go to the airport. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. There's we can't rent a car and the airport's not open. And I said, wait a minute. She loves the desert. She loves desert energy. I just need to get her off the strip, and we found a hotel out at Lake Las Vegas off the strip. And once we got out there, she went out into the grass. She put her feet in the grass for about 2 hours, and then she came into bed, and I cuddled her until the morning, and she said, "You know what? Thank you so much." She goes, "Nobody's ever loved me like that before," which
oh,
which I thought was pretty special.
certainly was.
And yeah, she didn't want to burden anybody, but she was very sensitive. Even just living where I lived in Los Angeles, the homeless people that were around, and the energy of the city, and she could feel everything. And so she wanted to move to Colorado and get away from the city. And I tried to get us out of the city as much as I could. But she was a sweetheart. She worked really hard to like I said, clear that sexual abuse trauma from her body, and to clear that, she was working on healing her nervous system. She had a somatic therapist, but she was just never, it was tough for her. She brought the song forward from the Red Hot Chili Pepper, Under the Bridge, which Anthony Kiedis wrote about all his bandmates continuing to party while he was sober and missing the old version of himself, missing those highs. And so Melanie had a
Yeah.
really difficult time after being on Adderall for 15 years, trying to figure out how to get excited about things in life. And I
That's,
kept telling her, once you start helping other people heal, that's going to be a whole new form of excitement for you. And I'm just sad that we were never able to get her there.
well, she's probably there now with you though, because you're doing all this good work for people.
Yeah, she is, and I feel her all the time. And she checks in. I referred to her as my butterfly, and Melanie kind of came and went like a butterfly, and that's still happening. I don't know when she's coming, but I've since Melanie has passed, I've actually been visited by other spirits more than just her. And the way that works is I'll get a vision of somebody in my head at the end of a breathwork session, and I'll say, "Drew, is that you?" And then boom, my chakras will light up. Or some of my dad's friends that have passed, some of my teammates from college that have passed, and I've been visited by a lot of people, but Melanie feels different than everybody else. When she comes, I know it's her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful that you are able to become so sensitive because not everybody is. A lot of people resist mightily this ability to become sensitive. And I know that. I hear from them. They're afraid of this sort of ability that they have. It's sort of like a line we all can follow in our minds that they're afraid that if they follow it too far, they'll never be able to come back or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, you look at the spirits are called spirits for a reason, right? And I think that spirits cut off the ability to connect with the other side. So once you remove the spirits and any other medications that you might be on, and you find something like breath work, and you clear any trapped energies in your chakras, now you're creating space for other energy to come in. And there's a lot of positive energy out there. And the things that draw in the negative energy are the things like alcohol and drugs. And if you have ever studied Dolores Cannon, she talks about Melanie referred them to them as entities. Dolores Cannon refers to them as elementals, but they were talking about the same thing. And I think Melanie got entities from her breathwork teacher, David Elliott, who is one of the best breathwork coaches in the world. And but if the Dolores says that those negative entities or elementals can only come in and through a vacuum that is created by things that are getting you further away from your higher self, like alcohol and drugs.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I do believe that when Melanie got back on the Adderall, these negative entities that she'd been running from our entire relationship, the same ones that she saw on the because she was so sensitive, the same ones that she saw on the walls in Las Vegas when she took her life, I believe that she was possessed by these disorganized energy forms that are lesser. From what I understand, they're lesser forms than human souls. They don't even they're not intentionally trying to harm. They just don't know what they're doing. They're a
Well,
bit
some of them are trying to harm. Yeah,
yeah,
they're low vibration
yeah.
beings. Yes. Yeah, well, some of them are trying to harm. Um, there are some baddies. People who read the Bible will see Jesus casting them out all over the place, all the time. Yeah, but we all have, some of us call them spirit guides, some of them call them guardian angels. They're talking about the same being. We are born with that guy in our lives, or woman or female. They are both genders, our whole lives, and they're right there. And all we have to do is give them space in our lives. But you're right, drugs and alcohol mess up that relationship. And so if she had gone back to that, to drugs, she could have messed up that relationship in a dangerous way. That's too bad.
Yeah, she went back to drugs and alcohol. Melanie was never a drinker. When I first met her when she was younger, fresh out of college, she partied a little bit. I met her at one of my events, but she was feeling like she was missing out on something, and life became very mundane for her. She was having a difficult time finding excitement without the Adderall. And then she was also very self-conscious about her weight. And she heard someone say in the breathwork line at a retreat she did in December that they thought that breathwork was making them fat. So Melanie kind of took
Oh,
that thought and made it her own. And also, she associated when she was really skinny to being on Adderall. And so there was multiple, I can't sit here and pinpoint just one thing as to why she retreated. There was multiple things on, like I said, on the earthly plane. And then this was divine. I feel like this was divinely orchestrated to happen the way that it did.
but you say that it was part of her life plan that she would leave somewhat early
Correct.
in terms of, yes.
And I think that
And
part of
our
that was to
lives,
activate me.
yes, we all plan our lives. Of course, we enter our lives, but then we plan usually two or three, most commonly three exit points that our higher consciousness can take. And she planned to take this one. Her higher consciousness made the choice, just rather dramatically, to leave at this time. And you have very wonderfully taken up working with that and doing this for and with her. But now the breath work sounds like an interesting thing. There are other ways too that people just opening yourself as you have done to work with her. Are you there? And then listening, opening your mind and your heart and listening. And you were prepared because you had the breath work. You understood what a chakra is and you paid attention to this sensitivity that you had developed in your own chakras. Different people have different ways, and you developed those ways, and then you paid attention to what was happening in your own body, and she was able to use that. That's beautiful, beautiful, Beau, that you're able to do that.
Yeah, it was more than just breath work too. I needed to feel okay. And I knew that there were things that didn't make me feel okay, like going back to the nightlife scene and trying to
Right.
promote and wrangle cats and being caught up in that low vibrational space. I knew I would not
Get
feel
away
good
from
doing that.
that.
So I went to Bali. I knew that I had a program that worked for me. It was far enough away from everything and everybody where I could just go focus on myself. It was HIIT fitness every morning. I got up at 6 a.m. with the sun. I was in my HIIT fitness class by 8:30, 9:30, depending on which day it was. Then I would have
Which class was this you were in?
HIIT fitness, high intensity interval training. So there's a former kickboxer that has a gym in Bali, and it's an outdoor gym, and you're just going through different exercises like battle ropes or medicine ball tosses or sit-ups or jumping jacks or high knees or agility ladder, sprinting, sumo squats, anything.
So you
And
were getting fit.
I kind of equate
You're
the
not on any drugs or anything like that. You're just in the zone. Okay, all right. That's another great thing you're doing.
there was four modalities that I leaned into, and each one associated with an element. Hit fitness, fire. I'm heating the body up. It's 80 to 100 degrees in Bali, depending on the day. But by the time I'm done, my entire shirt is soaking wet. After that, I would have a clean breakfast. Same thing every day: two hard-boiled eggs and a fruit salad with some goji berries and a little bit of yogurt and chia seeds and a coconut. Then I would go over to the Santai Recovery Spa, outdoor pool, vitamin D, sauna, ice bath, hot plunge. And I would take a 5-minute ice bath every day. Now it's 11 a.m. I've already got my HIIT fitness class done. I've got my ice bath done. So that's fire and water. Next, it's writing. I'm journaling. I'm grounding myself. It's earth. I'm connecting with my thoughts. And I would write. It started journaling. I started off journaling. Chris, the first medium that I worked with who wouldn't do the reading, he actually goes to me, "Are you a writer?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You should get a journal and write down everything that's about to happen to you. And before you make your mind up about anything, take time to reflect on it and think about it." So I got the journal, and then messages kept coming through that Melanie wanted her story told. It came through mediums, it came through music.
She
And
wanted her story told. Great. Okay. So she's already communicating with you
there
in
was,
whatever way she can.
there
That's
was,
good. Open yourself to her. That's what I tell people. You've got to open yourself to the loved one who is trying to communicate in whatever way she can. Perfect.
I
This
was ready to give up on her. I was frustrated. The anger, Chris, the first guy I worked with, said, "I'm sensing a tremendous amount of anger." Now we're 3 weeks after my call with Chris, and I hadn't felt anything but guilt and sadness. And I was journaling, and I got really frustrated because Melanie's mother wanted to tell a different story than the story that I wanted to tell. And I said, "Well,
if you want to say.
she just didn't want to open up as much about what happened as I did." And I went all the way out there with the sexual abuse and the Adderall, and
Yeah.
she didn't want to reveal either of those two things.
She wants it wanted to be pretty. Pretty, pretty story.
Yeah, just, graduated with honors, magna cum laude from University of San Diego, got a great job for Merrill Lynch. That's the story that she wanted to tell. And then it was the mental health thing. Well, mental health doesn't break down the core problem as to why it happened. So I got frustrated. I journaled, "This is the most selfish thing that anybody's ever done to me. And your family doesn't want me to tell your story, so why should I?" And I slammed my pen down, and I had so much negative energy in my body. I went to do a breathwork session. And at the end of that breathwork session, a song came through called the Photosynthesis of Healing by Emery Hall, which is beautiful spoken word over beautiful music. And in that song, one of the first things she said is, "What'll become of my stories, gardens or graveyards?" And the moment I heard that, I lit up, and I made the decision after that moment, okay, I'm not going to bury her story. I'm going to turn it into a garden so that it can help other people, so that it can flourish and blossom and help other people. And I was blown away by the sequence of events that took place. To then I'm lying there in meditation, and the first words that I hear after this big blow up I've just had journaling and frustration, "What will become of my stories, gardens or graveyards?" And it felt like a challenge to me. And that was when I decided that I was going to write the book. And I knew that in order to do it justice, I had to give up everything else in my life. So that was the journaling and the breath work. Those are the four modalities. Breath work is air. So you got earth, fire, water, and air. HIIT fitness is fire. Water is the ice bath. Journaling is earth, and breath work is the air. And then the last part was connecting to spirit. Well, in order to connect to spirit, you have to give up alcohol and drugs, which I did. And so I kind of incorporated those five things, and I can attribute even the ice bath is after about 90 seconds in an ice bath, you slip into a different dimension almost. You can start to see ripples in the sky. And so every single thing that I was doing was activating or raising my vibration to tap into my higher self and intuition.
My spirit guide just mentioned to me that in order to have beautiful flowers, you do have to put a lot of crap in the ground.
It's true. It's true, and it's been hard. I mean, I care deeply for her family, um, but I'm beginning to get a sense for why Melanie was unable to share her truth, and
It's part of the story.
everything that she was going through, I have inherited from the moment I lost her. All of her struggles became mine, and now I've been having to overcome her struggles, which I've like I said, as long as I stick to the program that works for me, I feel pretty good about myself. I feel like I'm doing something, like I'm heading in the right direction. I've done a lot of things. You rattled off a lot of credits to start this show, but for the first time in my life, I feel like the universe has my back and that
Yeah,
I'm headed in the right direction.
because everything that you have done in your life leading up to really the the culmination of her life, all of it comes together, and you're using all of it now to make a combined story of your life and hers that is a great teaching experience which you can give to the world,
Yeah.
which is really quite beautiful. That's a beautiful story.
And like you said, I'm utilizing everything that I learned in, from putting together events to, you know, from producing to promoting to writing. I've done all of that, and now I'm continuing to do all that in my new life, but with a higher purpose to help people who are struggling. And I hope that it's motivational and that people are excited to move forward and work with me. And it's tough because you don't want to. I read an interesting quote the other day that said, "You can't teach somebody when someone's drowning, you can't teach them how to swim." I can't remember exactly what it is, but some people have to be ready to walk this path. You can't force anybody to go down it. They have to be ready to go down it themselves.
But the place where it leads is toward joy. You can't feel joy if a baby doesn't feel real joy. He hadn't done anything yet. He has no
Yeah,
basis for feeling joy, but people who have been through terrible things, people who have been through true grief, people who have been through true pain, they can feel joy coming out the other end of it. It takes them deeper, it takes them higher. And that's something you can teach because you've been in all those places. And that's where you can lead them now.
yeah. And I'm trying to do that. It's still new. I mean, it's June 17th today. It's been almost 13 months to the day since I lost her. And I'm still, figuring out exactly what this journey looks like, although I feel like the amount of ground that I've covered in a short period of time has been pretty extensive.
It
Uh,
has been, yes.
but I don't know. I don't know exactly how this ends or where it goes.
It
And
doesn't end. That's the thing. It
yeah,
really doesn't end.
that's true. And I've recognized that it's not. But I've also tried to reframe the way I'm looking at it. I'm not on a healing journey. I'm on a
You're on a growth journey. You're on a higher and
I'm on
higher.
a it's a constant it's daily improvement. It's
Yes.
a daily improvement adventure that I'm on, and I'll be on that for the rest of my life. And I think part of the problem with Melanie is she kept looking as when does this healing journey end? When does it over?
It's
And
never over.
she was looking for an end point. So I think part of the important part is reframing that we're not on a healing journey, we're on an improvement journey.
You're on a growth journey and it gets
Yeah.
higher and higher. Love is lifting me higher and higher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but that's the thing. That's the point is the journey, and the journey gets better and better your whole life long. And that's what you can teach because you have been to the lowest places, and that's where the journey starts.
Yeah.
People have
And
never had that gift.
we learned our greatest lessons when we get knocked down. I think I've won championships in my life. You don't learn from winning a championship. You learn from losing a championship. You learn from the being knocked down to the lowest place in that you've ever been. I went through hell and came back from it. I didn't know. I was in such a state of panic and shock. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I lost 15 pounds. But I knew that if I could focus on winning one day at a time, that I would slowly crawl my way out of it. And I used to stress that with Melanie all the time. Just focus on winning one day at a time because she spent a lot of time in her head, and I spent a lot of time in her head with her, trying to talk her out of these negative thought patterns that she had, and it was a bit overwhelming when she looked at the entire process of starting her breathwork practice. It became overwhelming to her, and I'm like, all you got to do is like just win tomorrow. Make a to-do list of what you need to do to win tomorrow, and then before you go to bed, make a new to-do list about what you need to do the next day. And as long as you're knocking everything off your to-do list each day, those little wins will turn into big wins. And we would have this conversation over and over again. And I'd always get her to a place where she would feel really good. Thanks for talking to me about that. And she would get all excited and she'd put her to-do list together and she'd get up and she'd start doing it. But there was the sharing her story and being vulnerable enough to share her story was the one hump that she really struggled to get over. And it's because of this secrecy thing that she had, where I don't feel like she wanted to burden anybody. She didn't want to burden her family. She didn't want to burden me with her pain and her struggles. But in order for somebody to connect with you as a healer, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And that was really challenging for her.
Yeah. But you can share her story.
And I feel like that's what I'm being called on to do.
Yes.
Again, I don't feel like I'm fully making decisions myself anymore. And so like I don't know where I'm going to be 2 weeks from now, but the universe will let me know between now and then where it wants me to be. And the communication started, like I said, with the breath work, being able to ask the yes or no questions. Then I realized it was music. Then there was signs and synchronicities, a bunch that I've written through in the book where animals were sent my way, and then there was featured photos in my phone. I've got 12,000 photos in my phone, and I get little picture messages every day, which is a string of messages where Melanie is communicating to me what's coming or where she wants me to travel to, where she wants me to stay. And I'll be like, why am I seeing this picture? And then sure enough, a week later, I make the connection. So I've tried not to, I look at them every day and I screenshot them every day, but I've tried not to figure it out because I'll drive myself mad. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna know what this is when it
Yeah.
happens.
Right. Right.
And then the music, I'll wake up with songs in my head. And so I'll wake up with a song in my head that I haven't heard in 20 years. I'll put it on YouTube and then three more messages will come through the next three songs. I get twitches in my body. It started, and I was like, is this because I'm working out so much? What is this? I was getting dots and dashes. I'm like, this feels like Morse code. So I taught myself Morse code. And when I started deciphering, and it's really, really hard. It's as hard for me, I think, to decipher the Morse code messages as it is for her on the other side to charge my chakras with energy. But every once in a while, when I figure out what the message is, boom, my chakras light up as soon as I've deciphered what the message is.
What a wonderful relationship you have. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And it goes back many years. Melanie refers to me as her knight in shining armor. And in our past life, I was my great grandfather, William Pellegrini Williams, who was a Marine. And Melanie was my wife, Lucille. And William Pellegrini Williams, who I was in my past life, died at 32 years old. So Melanie lost me at 32 years old in our last life, and I lost her at 32 years old in this life, and this is
Oh,
completing some kind of karmic cycle for us.
oh, look at that. How beautiful. How beautiful that is.
Yeah, it's if you get to that point where you start making all these connections, that's like why I said it feels when someone tells you that her book of life was her born date and her death date were written before she came here, and then you make that discovery. Oh wait, she lost me when I was 32 in my last life, and she had to carry on. My dad actually talked about his grandmother Lucille. He said man, boy, she really belted out at church. And Melanie was a singer, and Lucille was from Colorado and moved to Orange County. And my grandfather was always upset that he didn't bury her in Colorado, but he buried her in, I think, Fullerton. Melanie grew up in Orange County. She wanted me to move her to Colorado.
Oh, look at that.
So it's almost like she wanted to go back to where she grew up in her past life. And when we were there, when we visited, she was always so excited to be there. So it's yeah, the second book is going to the first book is a braided narrative that is Melanie in my life in one of the narratives. And the other narrative is the moment I lost her through the first 30 days that I healed in Bali, or that I was healing in Bali. And it kind of ends with the opening chapter ends with the first part of that day. That's the final chapter of the book, is the first part of the day of the opening chapter, to when I'm going back to my house. And it says that started the worst day of my life. And then the me landing back in LA and saying I didn't know if I was going into a dream state or waking up from one because of everything that had happened to me. But then I move out of Venice, and the signs and synchronicities. So sunflower signals. Melanie was my butterfly. She refers to me as her sunflower, and she's pollinating me with information from the other side.
Oh, beautiful. That's
And so,
beautiful.
so sunflower signals is going to be every form of communication that I've gotten in the past year, which some of it ties into the LA fires. And I thought there was going to be a major earthquake that was going to happen in October, because she sent me a music video by Sia. Sia is a musician that was cut to the San Andreas Fault earthquake trailer. And Erin the Angel, who's another woman that I worked with, said, Melanie's telling me that you need to watch, like, she wants you to listen to California Dreamin'. And so I put California Dreamin' on my YouTube, and it was the Mamas and Papas, and nothing happened. But I had been having all these emergency messages come through my featured photos, through time stamps, like when I was on the phone with 911, when she had passed. I'm going, what is going on here? But so after I watched the Mamas and Papas videos, 4 videos down, I saw a cruise ship getting rolled over by a tidal wave, and it was California Dreamin' by Sia. And so I pressed play, and it was the San Andreas Fault movie trailer. And the moment I saw that trailer, it was this charge of fear, but not just fear. It was the same feeling that I get, but rather than being filled with euphoria, which is what Melanie usually would give it to me, this was filled with fear, but through all my chakras. And then I put a video out saying that I thought that this earthquake was going to happen, but it didn't. It turned out not being an earthquake, and the messages kept coming through, and I got an end date of January 20th. I said, something's happened between now and January 20th. Well, that's the last date where the last fire happened in LA, out in the Santa Clarita area, was the 20th.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just been a wild journey. Been a very wild journey for me. Reshapes the way that you think about life and what it is that we're doing here. And the two, if I could share anything about what I think that we're meant to learn to do here in order for our soul to evolve past the human level of enlightenment, is one is to live fearlessly, and two, everything that we do needs to come from a place of love and light, from the heart.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to sum all of this up, which I was about to ask because we've, of course, gone over time. I've just been fascinated by all of this. And I was working on my next blog post. There's always a frame verse. And they always come from my spirit guide. And when I asked him for a frame verse for the one we were working on this morning, he gave me California Dreamin', which totally didn't fit. I said, that doesn't fit. But he was thinking about you, that we were going to be talking with this afternoon. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been having more. It's interesting that you say that, because I've had the same emergency message that I was getting are starting to come through again, and then you look at some of the things that are happening, in the world right now, and I'm wondering if I was off by a year on some of these messages that I've been getting. Uh,
Which would not be surprising because there's no time where our guides are. Uh,
yeah,
there's time only on this level of reality, which is the very lowest material level is the lowest level. Oh, we have to have you back. There's so much more we need to talk about. We've barely scratched the surface, but we really do have to. We have to end it now because we've really gone over. But this has been so much fun. I have to tell you, um, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. I think it's very precious. There are so many people, if you can get the word out, who can really benefit from what you have to teach about how to communicate with our loved ones. Because grief is a poison that people really often, the choice you had to make when you lost Melanie, many people make the wrong choice at that point in their lives, and they never ever do get over the grief that overcomes them when they lose someone they love.
Yeah,
The
I agree.
choice is the choice you've made. You have integrated your grief with the love that you felt for her, and you've made this positive decision to live your life with her in doing wonderful things for the world. I'm so happy, Beau, that you're doing that. This is wonderful.
Thanks so much, Roberta. I really appreciate you having me on.
Stay where you are. I just have to tell everybody what we're going to be doing next week. Oh, my dear ones, wasn't that really wonderful? I'm just, I love what he's doing and I love what he's going to do. And if you want to sort of go to his website, it's sunflowersignals.com with an S at the end of signal. Oh, once again, my beloved friends, we have come to the end of our time, but this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. And if you will just please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you get that, and every implication of that fact, it changes everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be Peter Hayes. He'll be with us for the fourth time. This has become kind of a summertime tradition for us at Seek Reality. He always joins us in June or July of each year to talk about the upcoming Spiritist Convention. It comes along in the United States in the late summer of each year, and this year, the 19th annual Spiritist Convention will be called the Evolution of Consciousness. It happens on September 20th, 2025 at Weber's Boutique Hotel in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Peter Hayes is always an interesting guest. He always has something new to share with us. And frankly, Spiritism is fascinating. It's a rapidly growing movement. I didn't say religion, movement in the U.S. So this is going to be fun for us. Please be sure to join us next week. And this week, our guest has been Beau Williams for the first time. He is the author of the deeply moving memoir, 1 Year with My Soulmate. This is the first book in what he calls his Sunflower Signals series. Beau shares the raw, intimate, and very emotional story of his profound connection with his beloved Melanie. Her life is, as I told you at the start, was tragically cut short by her own choice. However, she didn't really make that choice openly. It was a choice that sort of drugs and alcohol kind of made for her, but it was a choice that was made actually before she was born. In a way that we sometimes, kind of all of us make that choice before we're born. These things are much more complex than we understand here from this very limited level of reality. And we'll understand much more, frankly, about this when we return home. This heartbreaking loss was the catalyst, however, for Beau, for something extraordinary. It began a journey of healing and connections with Melanie across continents, with Beau's testimony, which in his book is the kind of healing post-death establishment of connections with loved ones that very few people really make, but it can sometimes inspire us to do things. His journey, which is in his book and is beautiful, led him then to create the Sunflower Signals podcast, where he delves into deeper truths with gifted energy workers and spiritual teachers. If I had time to listen to a podcast, I would listen to that one. And he also founded the Butterfly Effects Retreat in Bali, which offers immersive healing experiences. Through his work, which is frankly just beginning, Beau empowers individuals to find their way through grief and trauma, and he demonstrates that love truly can easily transcend physical death. And that reminds me just to mention once again that, as you know, our dear friend Craig Hogan is the president and guru of Seek Reality Online, and that's your one-stop resource for all things afterlife. Go to seekreality.com and learn that you yourself are eternal too. And that's about all we can talk about because we have truly come to the end of our time. So this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in your one reality, which is also our one reality. It's eternally everyone's one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you most of all in this entire universe, you are infinitely, eternally, and perfectly loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.